G'day guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for watching the Wildkard Rugby Show. Like, comment, and subscribe. But yes, this is a late video. I've been really busy with work, unfortunately. I apologize, guys. It is Friday already. Usually this video comes out on Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe Thursday. But I'm looking at working till maybe 12 o'clock again tonight. It's just been really busy with work and not having time to make these videos. But hey, we are here now, so let's quickly get this through. There's a lot of news to talk about, and I'm trying not to rant too much about what's happening in the state of rugby these days. So everybody knows in my previous videos that I'm strongly against the Moana Pacifica Aboriginal team, based the fact that it's a race-based, blood-based selection, and I think that is just not the spirit of rugby. You know, rugby is a sport that, you know, that is for everyone, right? It's a sport where people say played in heaven. And last time I checked, heaven is not a place exclusive to any race of people. If you believe in it, you're a good person, you can make it your way into heaven. And that's why it's called the game played in heaven, because it is for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're tall, you're short, you're big, you're small, you're fast, you're slow, you're fat or skinny. It doesn't matter. There's a position for you on the rugby field. It all comes down to your personal abilities and desire to play. And I think that is the beauty of rugby. That is why I initially started playing rugby in the first place. And to see these, you know, race-based selection policies come out in the sport, especially after the sport stood up against racism, you know, against the Springboks in the 90s for apartheid, and then eventually ended with Nelson Mandela wearing the Springbok jersey, handing the Webb Ellis Cup to Francois Pienaar, was the moment of, you know, human history. It was the moment whether you say the real changes are done. It's up to debate, but it's a moment, at least symbolically, that we move towards a society through this beautiful sport of rugby, which is designed for everybody. It's towards a more, I guess, unified world where people look past race. I mean, obviously that's not real. It's not. You know, we're still very far away from it, but at least, you know, in the sport of rugby, where there shouldn't really be a race-based selection, because it should just be. It's a sport. It should just be based on people's abilities. And then, you know, to go from that monumental symbolic movement to back at race baiting selections, it is really disgraceful. I think no matter what the excuses are, and if you don't agree with your race based, if you don't agree, then don't issue so many visas. You know, like Japan here, don't issue all the visas. Don't issue all the passports if you don't want these players to play for your team. I mean, you hire them, you gave them the passports and visas, and now you don't want them to play. It is because of their race. It is grossly kind of racist. But hey, I do think that this article does, you know, I have to say it is a little bit biased, and it is a little bit, and I don't want to say this because I'm Asian. People think, oh, you're just talking about, because technically this is not nearly as bad as the Moana Pacifica and Aboriginal team, because you are still allowed as a foreigner to play for the Japan team. You just need to have 30 test caps to be considered a local Japanese, essentially. So this article is actually a little bit of race baiting, and I think that, again, you don't hear about this from Ben Smith talking about the Moana Pacifica, you know, Aboriginal team, because, oh, that's politically incorrect. But they're more than happy to take something that is wrong, which is definitely wrong, and talk about it on Rugby Pass. You know, that's I think that is really a little bit of it is a little bit too double standards on how things are done here. And I'm 100% against this, but I do think that they don't talk about why aren't they talking about the Moana Pacifica team like that is done here in Australia for the Lions tour, right? Ben Smith, you know, why don't you give us an answer? Where's your article about the blood eligibility for that team, right? But still, let's look at what is actually happening. So Japan Rugby, and this is a culture thing as well. I just have to point out the Japanese culture. They really like, you know, their own traditions, their own blood. They're always being historically quite, you know, anti-foreigners, that sort of stuff. And I think they still are quite anti-foreigners. But rugby should not be a sport that tolerates that, because, you know, if you don't want to, feel free, don't play rugby, right? But, you know, rugby has to make money, and who cares? Just throw our traditional values out of the window to make money to allow for whatever, I guess. But it's not nearly as bad as the Moana Pacifica Island team, because It's only a limitation of how many players you can have that are not Japanese based. Essentially, it's not actually blood based, not Japanese based. To reduce the number of foreign players that is allowed to the League One team. Okay, it's not the national team; it's just the League One team. The national team still allows you to play if you have a passport, essentially. So reducing the number of players allowed, and even if you are, what people think it's controversial because oh my god, is the fact that if you have a Japanese passport and you don't have Japanese blood, like if you're a foreigner, in this case of Dylan Riley or Warren Durns, you're not allowed. You're not considered a foreigner, or you're not considered a local Japanese until you have 30 test caps for the nation. So it's not actually a complete shutout, a complete like the Moana Pacifica team, Moana Pacifica Aboriginal teams, complete shutout. If you don't have blood, you're not allowed to play. Period. It's like you have to actually play 30 caps for the Japanese nation to be considered within the quote, to be considered not in the part of the quota. But if you aren't, you are restricted to the number of players that is allowed. I do think, yeah, there should never be any team selected based on their race. I think Japan should just say, limiting to 2 foreign players to reduce the, yeah. It's mainly because some of the national level players that they wanted to be, they should just keep them as part of Japanese, because if you have a passport, you play for the nation already. Why should it be considered outside of the quota? I don't know. It's Japan Rugby, and I think that Ben Smith, it's a bit double standard from my opinion. You don't talk about the other parts, but yeah. Anyway, let's talk about something that is a bit more closer to what I care about. Is the Anzac Day today actually. So show some. We're gonna pay some respect to. Just wanna this is kind of like my little bit of spiel to the people that passed away, the former greats that passed away for to protect our great countries for the 2 great wars. And there was some All Blacks that lost in the trenches in Europe in First World War because of it's just part of the being I guess at the time being being tied to Britain. And yeah, it's really it is really hard because to see some of these great All Blacks dying. Yeah, and some of these All Blacks were in the original All Black team that toured Europe losing only to Wales, and a lot of these players were just absolute like the legend at the beginning of the All Blacks legacy we see today, and some of them, and they dying in the war in the World War that is so far away from where we live. It's really a big sacrifice from their part, and I think that I do want to pay my tribute to thank all these men that gave their lives for us and leaving a legacy of the All Blacks that we see today. Anyway, let's moving on to something about Australian rugby. So yeah, the talents going overseas continues for Australian rugby. First up, Len Gitao has actually retained in Australia till 2027, but with the option for a sabbatical to the Exeter Chiefs in next year for a break. So he's going to get a bit of a break. I think this is pretty much what New Zealand's doing with their top talents, and I think Rugby Australia is left with no choice but to pursue these options for their players. Unfortunately, they don't have this option for they're not they're probably going to be looking at for some of the bigger names as well, like Tom Wright is currently in a 3-way negotiations with Montpellier, a Japanese club. Probably going to drop out of the Japanese club based on their new selection policies. So probably most likely in the French club is in discussion with Rugby Australia for retaining him. I think Tom Wright, I don't know, Rugby Australia could just think that Swali'i is a fullback and just let him go. But I really hope not, because it's going to thin out the talent for Super Rugby as well. Rob Leota has already signed to Bayonne in France for next season, so he will be heading over to Europe and leaving the Waratahs after just one season, after the Melbourne Rebels collapsed last season. And it was reported last week that there was no contact with Tupou and French team, but it is actually reported this week that Tupou is in talk with what is it? Section Paloisi. I don't know. This team is in top 14 in France. Is looking at a potentially a contract with Tupou and Despite denying it last week, it's being reported again this week that this is indeed happening. So yeah, with that being said, let's look at the Lions tour next. So the Lions tour is approaching. We've got Johnny Sexton. Is back in the fold. The greatest Irish player ever. Okay. I don't care what you say about Brian O'Driscoll, but Johnny Sexton is the greatest ever in my books, and he's back to be a mentor for the Lions tour. And yeah, Johnny is back, and he will undoubtedly provide a lot of guidance to the fly halves, especially the fly half position is really thin right now for the Lions. You've got Finn Smith, Marcus Smith, and then Gareth Anscombe, bit over the hill there, and then you got Prendergast, who hasn't really been performed for Ireland, and then you've got Crowley, who's going to be coming off the bench for Ireland, and that's pretty much, and Finn Russell, right? Finn Russell, again, hasn't been kicking goals lately, so a lot of guys are probably a little bit clinching their butt cheeks going into this series. Speaking of clinching butt cheeks, Xander Fagerson is racing back from an injury alongside of his teammate as well. Duhan van der Merwe racing back from an injury as well to potentially even make it available for selection for the Lions tour. Ollie Lawrence is completely out. There was a number of big names are out, but these two, for me, are starting Lions selections in the 23, especially Duhan van der Merwe. Huge advantage for the Lions with him in the team. Now, let's move on to a bit over the place. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, so speaking of the Lions, there were some talks about James O'Connor potentially representing the Wallabies again at the Lions tour. I don't think so. I think, with the 10s that we got right now are pretty decent, and O'Connor probably has a better chance at the All Blacks at the moment. With, if Damien McKenzie gets injured, he could be on the bench behind Beauden Barrett, right? Like, it's probably more that case than actually having him for the Wallabies. And I think that in terms of goal kicking, James O'Connor might be like one of the better percentages at the moment out of all the All Blacks, out of all the 10s in New Zealand right now, except for Damien McKenzie, obviously. Other than Damien McKenzie, he probably has the best goal kicking record. So yeah, Beauden Barrett has been shaking his kick as well recently. So it is. I think he actually has a better chance for the All Blacks, to be honest with you. Speaking of injuries, Dion Fourie, in South Africa now. Billy LaRue is returning this weekend. Again, he's 99 test cap. He's got 1 test cap away from that Springbok great number, and he's looking to probably getting a shot in the July test series. And then we've got Dion Fourie hobbled off the field this week, and there's some discussions that he might be the end of the great man's career, but he wants to continue. He's like, getting close to 40, and he wants to not end his career coming off the field on a stretcher, so to speak. And then we move on to speaking of South Africa, we've got Evan Nesmith returning last week. There were some talks that he might not be available, or whatever. But he came on the field, started a bit of beef with Sam Skinner. Both players were sent off as a result. Lots of online saying that it was Evan Nesmith who started it. But yeah, his enforcer is back for the South Africans. But everybody knows Evan Nesmith has only ever lost 1 fight on the rugby field in his entire career, and that is against Ala Alatoa against the Wallabies in 2021, I think it was. Yeah, that was in Adelaide. I think that was the only time he lost the fight on the field, and he's undefeated since then. And speaking of some on-field shenanigans, Nolann Garrec from the French team took a massive dive on the weekend, and this was just embarrassing. That is just embarrassing. So the Nigel Owens actually came out and said this should be a red card because it is grossly against the spirit of the game, and it's just like that is just so bad. Like, what was he thinking? No one knows, but it just tells there is a bit of a milking going on in rugby nowadays, but that is just way too much and way too obvious, and it's a bit of disgrace. But he did come out and apologize immediately, realizing that, hey, should not have done that. That's pretty stupid. Speaking of stupidity, no, sorry, not stupidity. Speaking of abuse, so World Rugby is once again partnering with a company called Signify group to protect players and officials against abuse from online. They did this in the Men's Rugby World Cup in 2023, which is why there was an Australian kid that was abusing the referee or something online that got done by the police. So they're gonna do that again for the Women's World Cup that's coming up, and they're gonna try to clamor down some online abuse, especially against referees. And apparently, the research showed that the largest origination of abuse comes from the UK, and especially against women and officials. I'm surprised that there was that much against women. I'm sure I understand there's officials being abused, but really, that many people watch women's rugby and get angry and start abusing the performances. I just I find that that's pretty low, to be honest. If people are doing that, just let them play rugby. No need to abuse the girls for trying to play in a sport. To be really frank with you. The next up, we've got Saudi Arabia has confirmed that they are indeed planning to host the Rugby World Cup in 10 years' time, in 2030. What is it? 2033? 2035? 2035, I think it is. Yeah, 2035. So they are indeed going to have a bid after, they're going to be hosting the Football World Cup 2034. So they're going to have like a lot of stadiums built for the Football World Cup, and they use that again for the Rugby World Cup. So yeah, it's looking quite strong. The Saudis might get the opportunity to host Rugby World Cup anytime, in note before the South Africans. I think that's a bit of a shame. So Matt Sherratt, apparently some rumors that he was going to take the Wales to the July Test series, and he's denied that. So Wales still has no coach to take the team to the July Test series that is coming up. Pretty much none of their players are going to be selected for the Lions tour, so they're going to have a full team at their disposal to go on tour. Next up, and pretty much it this week's news. So next up, we've got last bit of news before we talk about Super Rugby. So Tusi Pisi has been announced as the new head coach for Samoa, which is pretty good. And finally, the games this weekend, Anzac Showdown. We've got big return for Wallace Satiti. The Chiefs going to be against the Western Force. Satiti will become with the bench. He was the best player, one of the best players for the All Blacks last year, despite being a rookie. And looking forward for him to come on and make some big impact play. The Western Force, after a draw last week, is talking about the disappointed not being able to get the win against the Hurricanes. And again, a win against the Western Force could be a bit of a motivating factor for them to win this one, but we'll have to wait and see. Damien McKenzie is not playing, is taking a break for this game. So the Chiefs still has a very strong lineup here. Somasona Taukeiaho moving off the bench. You've got, the what's his name? You've got Jacobson at number 8. It's Samipeni Finau, Tupuvai, all in the starting positions. The only one that's missing is just Damien McKenzie. So yeah, it's not an easy one for the Force to try to overcome this one, but they're gonna have to do their best. There was some rumors that Cully Beale will be coming back soon, so not in this game, but he might be back next game. So it'd be good to see him back in the fold as well. Big game tonight is Reds versus the Blues. Anzac Showdown. The Blues has been struggling a little bit, but the Reds has really jammed their bench to try to counteract the Blues' power and strength in the second half. Essentially, Alex Hodgman off the bench, Angus Blythe and Ryan Smith all going to be coming off the bench to try to finish off game. Strong Kalani Thomas as well. A bit of a extra fireworks coming off. Jock Campbell gets the start in the fullback position. He's been out for quite some time now as well. Tom Lara in the starting position, and pretty big showdown this week for the Reds. And just the big forwards are going to have a big, hard wicked work ahead of him. Kurt Eklund gets caught up for the Blues at the hooker. Outside of that, Harry Plummer at 10, and Bowden Barrett is moved to the bench to come off to try to be a finisher this weekend for the Blues. So yeah, we'll have to see. I think the Blues will be focusing a lot on their 4-packs anyway, so not too much of an issue having Plummer in the starting position. Again, the Battle of the Islands, Moana Pacifica versus Fiji Drew. Adi Savia is back this week after the 0-point performance against the Brumbies last week. This will be, again, show the difference between Adi Savia when he's on the field and when he's not on the field. Last weekend, his brother was on the field, just not quite enough. For the Endurance as well, big win against the Waratahs at home, but this is an away game, and Endurance hasn't really performed in the away environment, and we'll have to see if they're going to tidy up some of their gameplay last week and then bring into this one. This is going to be a very physical game, and it's going to be quite interesting with what's his name? Armstrong Ravola, once again named at 10 for the Fijian Endurance. So yeah, and finally the last two more games, we've got Highlanders versus Crusaders and Dunedin tomorrow. Fletcher New on IMF performance with Crusaders. James O'Connor's getting a break this week for the Highlanders. Ethan de Groot will be up to fetch the Fletcher New in the first half. But yeah, this will be interesting game. Once again, the Highlanders, I feel like the teams are pretty disconnected right now. They need to, if they can get everybody working together in a like a well-oiled machine, they definitely have a chance to beat the Crusaders. I think the Crusaders were very clunky last season, and they kind of starting to click in terms of it's starting to click this season and starting to see some of that results. David Havili is back as well. With Taha Kemana at 10 for the Crusaders. So yeah, it comes down to how good the team can work together, which with the result. I don't think the Crusaders are a definite winner for this one. I think the Highlanders have a chance here. Finally, the Brumbies versus Hurricanes at home tomorrow night. Yeah, again, the Hurricanes draw last week, wanted to come out with a win. The Brumbies, big win against the Fijian Endurance. And yeah, it's a pretty strong Brumbies team, and I think the Brumbies are looking really good with the the set piece looking good, the rolling Morse looking quite good, and they're not taking penalties like they used to. And this is a pretty strong starting team for the Brumbies with the veterans, James Slipper, Alan Atua in the starting, Nick Frost, Tom Wright, everybody you can name off is starting Len Nikitau. And I think that the Brumbies will win this one over the Hurricanes. Ruben Love, once again, they're at 10. I already talked about that. And yeah, I think that the Hurricanes just a little bit light this year in terms of their, I think, just losing Artie Savea and Jordy Barrett just really lost a lot of that critical glue that brings the team together to finish their season, finish games strong. So yeah, anyway, let me know your thoughts about the news this week. Thanks for watching the video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and see you guys later for the reviews. Cheers.